The first man who broke into Centralia after the barricades went up said the silence was wrong. He had expected the wind. He had expected loose tin scraping against rooftops and the hollow clap of doors banging in empty frames. Instead, he described something heavier. A silence that pressed against the ears.
Let me see.
A silence that felt aware.
It's all right.
According to county records from 1954, the village of Centralia was officially declared unsafe and permanently evacuated after a series of unexplained incidents.
Heavenly Father, we gather in your light, seeking your guidance and peace.
Contaminated wells and persistent underground fires. But the handwritten notes in the margins tell a different story.
In nomine
They
Patris
mention
et Filii et
screaming.
Spiritus Sancti.
They mention animals
Exortu eum
refusing to
immunde
cross the boundary
spiritus.
road. They mention the priest who arrived on October 17th and never returned to his parish. Centralia sits in a narrow valley, surrounded by low, tree-choked hills. In the early 1950s, it was small but alive. 237 residents. A church, a schoolhouse, a general store, and rows of modest wooden homes. The people there knew each other's names, their habits,
Stay alert,
their
something's
secrets.
not right here.
They
Look
also
at this.
knew when
Papers
something
everywhere.
changed.
The shadows
It
keep
began
shifting.
quietly. In late spring of 1953, several families reported a low vibration beneath their homes. At first, it was blamed on mining activity. There had been coal extraction in the region decades earlier. Old shafts ran like veins beneath the earth. The vibration felt like a distant engine.
It's starting again.
Constant,
Look
but
at the
faint.
intensity.
Then
Readings
the
are
animals
spiking.
reacted.
It's heading for the
Cows
church.
stopped entering the northern pasture. Dogs would whine at night, staring toward the hills. Chickens refused to roost in their coops, clustering instead near the road that led out of town. Witnesses later reported a smell. Not smoke, not exactly. More like damp soil, mixed with something metallic. The scent drifted through the streets just before dawn and vanished by midday. Dr. Harold Whitmore, the town's only physician, was the first to document physical symptoms. 3 patients arrived in 1 week complaining of headaches and sudden nosebleeds. They described a pressure behind their eyes. One woman, Mrs. Eleanor Graves, insisted she could hear breathing in her walls. Dr. Whitmore attributed it to stress. The post-war years had not been easy. But when he visited Mrs. Graves' home, he wrote in his journal that the air felt unusually warm despite the cool weather. He noted a faint tremor underfoot. He also noted that the family's crucifix, mounted above the kitchen doorway, had fallen and split cleanly down the middle. He did not include that last detail in the official medical report. The tremors intensified by midsummer. Several houses developed cracks along their foundations. A shallow sinkhole opened near the church cemetery, swallowing 2 headstones. The town council requested assistance from state engineers. The engineers surveyed the area and concluded that residual coal seam fires could be burning underground, destabilizing the soil. Coal fires can smolder for decades. That explanation satisfied some of the residents. It did not explain the sounds. Children began waking at night, describing whispers beneath their beds. A group of boys claimed they heard knocking from inside an abandoned mine shaft at the edge of town. When adults investigated, they found nothing but darkness and stale air. Then came the first death. On August 3, 1953, 16-year-old Thomas Keating disappeared. He had been walking home from the store just after sunset. His mother reported that he never arrived. Search parties combed the woods, the hills, and the old mine entrances. They found him 2 days later, sitting upright against a tree at the northern boundary. There were no visible injuries. His eyes were open. His skin was cold despite the heat. The coroner's report listed cardiac arrest, though Dr. Whitmore privately wrote that the boy's expression was fixed in terror. According to 2 volunteers who discovered the body, the soil around Thomas appeared disturbed, as if something had pushed up from beneath. The funeral drew the entire village. Father Matthew Callahan, who had served Centralia for nearly 12 years, delivered a sermon about faith in times of uncertainty. Parishioners later stated that his voice trembled throughout. Several recalled that he paused mid-sentence, staring toward the back of the church as though someone had entered. No one had. After Thomas's death, the disturbances escalated. The vibrations became rhythmic. Residents described a pulsing sensation, like a slow heartbeat beneath the town. Windows rattled without wind. Doors opened on their own. Mrs. Graves returned to Dr. Whitmore, claiming the breathing in her walls had grown louder. She said it synchronized with the tremors. She insisted it responded when she spoke. Her husband dismissed it as hysteria. 3 nights later, he was found outside their home at 2 a.m., barefoot and disoriented. He kept repeating that something had called his name from beneath the floorboards. By September, nearly half the village reported sleep disturbances. Nightmares shared common themes: tunnels, firelight flickering below ground, figures standing at the ends of long corridors. The schoolteacher, Miss Clara Bennett, wrote to her sister that her students had begun drawing the same image during free time. A deep crack splitting the earth. Dark shapes inside it. She had not discussed the sinkhole with them. According to church records archived years later, Father Callahan began conducting private blessings in several homes. He attributed the phenomena to spiritual unrest stirred by the old mines. He believed that whatever burned underground might have opened more than physical fissures. On October 10th, he requested assistance from the diocese. The letter, preserved in church archives, reads in part, "The disturbances here exceed natural explanation. I have witnessed manifestations that suggest a presence rooted beneath the town itself. I fear it grows stronger." The diocese responded cautiously. A visiting priest, Father Dominic Ruiz, was dispatched to assess the situation. Father Ruiz arrived on October 17th. He was described as quiet, observant, and unusually pale upon stepping off the bus.
Just breathe.
Witnesses later said he paused at the edge of town, as if listening. That night, both priests visited the Keating residence,
Let us pray.
where Thomas had
Heavenly
lived.
Father, we gather
His
in your light,
parents
seeking your
reported
guidance
ongoing
and peace.
disturbances in his former bedroom. Objects moved. The temperature dropped sharply after midnight. A faint knocking persisted
In
from
nomine
the
Patris
closet
et
wall.
Filii et Spiritus
Father
Sancti.
Ruiz insisted on
Exortu
spending
omnis
the night
immunde
in the room alone.
spiritus.
According to Father Callahan's later testimony, the knocking began shortly after 1 a.m. It was steady. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. By 2 a.m., the entire house felt the vibration. The walls hummed. The crucifix above the bed tilted forward as though pulled. At 2:17 a.m., Father Ruiz began reciting Latin prayers. The knocking
Stay alert,
stopped.
something's not right here.
Then something
Look at
answered.
this. Papers
Not
everywhere.
from the walls.
Shadows keep shifting.
From beneath the floor. Father Callahan reported hearing a voice. Low. Indistinct. It did not speak words he recognized, but it mimicked the rhythm of the prayer. When he attempted to enter the room, the door would not open. He described the handle as resisting, though no lock had been engaged. The prayer
It's
continued
starting
for
again.
nearly 40
Look at the
minutes.
intensity.
Then
Readings
it
are
stopped
spiking.
abruptly.
It's heading
When
for the
door
church.
finally gave way, Father Ruiz was kneeling at the center of the room, drenched in sweat. The wooden floorboards beneath him were hot to the touch. He told Father Callahan that the presence was not confined to a person. "It is in the ground," he said. "It is beneath all of us." The following day, smoke was seen rising from a crack near the northern pasture. Engineers confirmed active coal fire below the surface. The state declared the area hazardous. Evacuation was recommended for safety reasons, but several residents refused to leave. They claimed the fire was not the true cause. They claimed it had begun after the tremors. On October 23rd, Mrs. Eleanor Graves was found unconscious in her kitchen. Neighbors reported screams shortly before midnight. When they arrived, they discovered the floorboards had buckled upward in a circular pattern around her body. She survived, but she would not speak. Her husband told authorities that just before she collapsed, she had pressed her ear to the floor and whispered, "I hear them digging." That same night, livestock in 3 separate farms broke through their fences and fled toward the southern road. 2 were later found dead near the boundary, with no visible wounds. Father Ruiz requested permission to perform a formal rite. The diocese hesitated. The church does not authorize exorcism lightly, especially not for land. But Father Ruiz insisted that what lay beneath Centralia was not merely geological. Witnesses later stated that on October 27th, shortly after sunset, both priests walked to the northern sinkhole carrying a crucifix, holy water, and a ritual book. Several townspeople followed at a distance. The air reportedly felt suffocating. Warm drafts rose from the crack in the earth. The smell of metal and ash intensified. Father Ruiz began the rite in Latin, his voice steady at first. As he spoke, the ground trembled more violently than before. Dust lifted from the surface. Small stones shifted inward toward the fissure, as though drawn. Father Callahan later testified that he saw movement within the crack. Not flames. Shapes. He described them as shadows against deeper shadow. The prayer grew louder. So did the tremor. Then a sound emerged from below. Not knocking this time. Breathing. Slow. Measured. Witnesses stepped back. Some fell to their knees. The breathing rose in volume until it resembled a collective exhale from something vast and unseen. Father Ruiz did not stop. He pressed the crucifix toward the fissure and continued the rite. The ground split further. A thin line of fire traced along the crack. And then the voice returned. Not from beneath one house. Not from a single wall. From the earth itself. Several villagers later claimed they heard their own names spoken in distorted tones. At that moment, Father Ruiz staggered backward, clutching his chest. Father Callahan tried to steady him, but the younger priest's eyes were fixed on the opening. He whispered something that no one else heard. Then he stepped forward, too close to the edge. The soil beneath his feet collapsed, and Father Dominic Ruiz disappeared into the burning fissure as the ground sealed behind him. For a moment, no one moved. The crack that had swallowed Father Dominic Ruiz sealed itself with a sound like grinding stone. The thin line of fire that had traced its edge flickered once, then vanished, leaving only scorched earth and a haze of heat rising into the October air. Father Matthew Callahan dropped to his knees at the exact spot where the ground had given way. Witnesses later stated that he clawed at the soil with his bare hands, ignoring the heat, ignoring the smoke. He called Father Ruiz's name again and again. There was no answer, only that low vibration beneath the surface. Slower now, deliberate. The townspeople stood frozen along the perimeter of the pasture. Some wept. Others backed away, without speaking. One man, Joseph Harlan, would later testify that as he turned to leave, he heard footsteps behind him, many footsteps, though no one was close enough to make them. Within an hour, word had spread across Centralia. By dawn, state authorities had been notified of a fatal accident connected to unstable ground conditions. The official report classified Father Ruiz's death as a result of subsidence caused by underground coal fire activity. No body was recovered, but according to Father Callahan's written statement to the diocese, what occurred at the sinkhole was not a collapse in any natural sense. He described the earth as responsive. He described resistance when he tried to reach into the fissure, as if something beneath had pulled inward.
It's all right.
And he described a final sensation, just before the crack sealed, of air rushing downward, as though the ground had inhaled. The diocese ordered silence regarding
Heavenly Father, we gather in your light, seeking your
Within
guidance
days,
and peace.
Engineers arrived to conduct a broader geological survey. Their findings confirmed expanding underground fires.
In nome dei Patri,
Toxic
et Filii, et
gases were
Spiritus
detected
Sancti.
near the northern
Exortu
pasture.
omnis immunde
Carbon monoxide
spiritus.
levels in some basements measured higher than acceptable limits. The evacuation order became mandatory. Families were instructed to gather essential belongings and leave within 48 hours. Compensation would be arranged later. Some residents complied immediately. Others resisted. They claimed that leaving would not solve what had begun. On October 30th, as trucks carried furniture and livestock away,
Stay alert,
several
something's not
homes
right here.
experienced
Look
sudden
at this.
structural
Papers
failures.
everywhere. The shadows
Floors
keep
buckled
shifting.
upward. Walls split along vertical seams. One resident reported that her kitchen tiles cracked in a straight line from the sink to the back door, as though marking a path. That night, 3 separate fires ignited inside empty houses. Investigators blamed methane buildup. Yet firefighters later testified that the flames
Look at the
did
intensity.
not spread normally.
Readings are
They
spiking.
burned in
It's heading for the
concentrated
church.
circles, low and controlled, before extinguishing themselves without consuming the structures. By early November, Centralia stood nearly deserted. Father Callahan refused to leave. According to church correspondence preserved in the diocesan archives, he wrote, "If I abandon this ground, "I abandon those who cannot escape it." He took residence inside the church alone. The building sat near the center of town, its white steeple visible above the rooftops. From there, he could see the hills that ringed the valley. He could also see, at night, faint glows along the northern edge, where the fissure had opened. Over the next week, he documented his experiences in a leather-bound journal. The entries grew increasingly fragmented. November 2nd. Vibration constant. Louder after midnight. Sounds beneath floor of nave. Not fire. November 3rd. Dreamt of tunnels. Faces and walls. Ruiz standing among them. November 4th. Voice spoke during evening prayer. Not external. From below altar. On November 5th, a deputy sheriff arrived to escort Father Callahan out by force, citing safety concerns. The deputy later reported that upon entering the church, he felt disoriented. He described the air as heavy and unusually warm. He also noted a smell similar to burning metal. When he approached the altar, he found Father Callahan kneeling, speaking softly in Latin. The floorboards around the altar showed faint cracks radiating outward in a circular pattern. The deputy insisted they leave immediately. As they stepped outside, the church bell began to ring. No one was inside to pull it. The ringing continued for nearly a full minute before stopping abruptly. The deputy refused to re-enter the building. That evening, Father Callahan agreed to depart temporarily, promising to return once conditions stabilized. He locked the church doors himself. According to transportation records, he boarded a bus at 6:40 p.m., carrying only his journal and a small suitcase. Centralia was officially declared uninhabitable the following morning. Barricades were erected along the main road. Signs warned of unstable ground and toxic gases. Access was restricted under penalty of law. But the disturbances did not end with evacuation. In the months that followed, travelers reported unusual phenomena near the boundary. Engines stalled without explanation. Radios emitted static that shifted into low murmurs before cutting out. One truck driver claimed he saw figures standing between the abandoned houses at dusk, unmoving and dark against the fading light. State officials dismissed these accounts as exaggerations fueled by rumor. Yet internal memos from early 1954 reveal continued geological instability concentrated specifically beneath the church and northern pasture. Thermal imaging detected heat signatures inconsistent with mapped coal seams. One engineer wrote, "Fire behavior erratic. Heat pockets appear to migrate." By February 1954, snow blanketed the valley. From a distance, Centralia looked peaceful. White rooftops. Silent streets. But aerial surveys showed thin trails of steam rising through the snow in straight lines, forming patterns that did not align with known mine tunnels. Meanwhile, Father Callahan's condition deteriorated. According to diocesan medical records, he was admitted to a small religious infirmary in March. Staff noted severe insomnia, tremors, and episodes of dissociation. He reportedly woke at night shouting warnings in Latin. He refused to surrender his journal. When questioned about Father Ruiz, he insisted the younger priest was not dead. He was taken, he told attending clergy. He is beneath. They keep him. Clergy attributed his statements to trauma and guilt. On April 9, 1954, Father Callahan disappeared from the infirmary. Surveillance at the time was minimal. A nurse reported seeing him walking calmly toward the rear exit, just before dawn. He carried nothing. His body was never found. 2 weeks later, a group of teenagers from a neighboring town breached the barricade and entered Centralia as a dare. They intended to spend the night inside the abandoned schoolhouse. Only one returned. The surviving teenager, identified in police records as Daniel Mercer, was discovered wandering along the highway at sunrise. He was barefoot, his clothes streaked with ash. He appeared disoriented and repeatedly asked what day it was. When questioned, he claimed the ground inside the schoolhouse floor had grown warm around midnight. He said the windows began to fog from the inside,
It won't stop.
though it was freezing
It's all right.
outside.
Just breathe.
He heard what he described as chanting beneath the building. His two friends were never located. Search efforts were limited due to
Let us
unstable
pray.
terrain.
Heavenly Father, we
cited
gather in your
sinkholes
light,
and
seeking your
toxic
guidance
gas
and
as
peace.
probable causes. The barricades were reinforced. Additional warning signs were installed. Despite this, sporadic intrusions continued over the decades. Urban explorers, journalists, and curiosity seekers slipped past the perimeter. Some documented cracked roads with smoke drifting from fissures. Others reported faint humming sounds captured on tape recorders. In 1961, a freelance photographer published images of the abandoned church. The steeple leaned slightly, as if pulled. The front doors appeared warped inward. One photograph, later analyzed, showed what seemed to be a figure standing in the doorway.
The
negative revealed no such figure at the time of exposure. The photographer died in a car accident 6 months later after reporting recurring nightmares involving tunnels and distant bells. Geologists maintain that Centralia's condition could be explained entirely by underground coal fires and resulting subsidence. They noted that such fires can create
It's starting
heat vents,
again.
toxic
Look at the
gases,
intensity.
and structural
Readings are
collapse.
spiking. It's heading for the church.
They could not explain why thermal readings concentrated repeatedly at the exact location where Father Ruiz had vanished. They could not explain why, in 1974, seismic sensors detected rhythmic tremors beneath the valley, tremors that matched, in pattern and interval, the descriptions recorded in Father Callahan's journal. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. In 1982, a research team installed monitoring equipment near the northern boundary. The equipment malfunctioned repeatedly. Batteries drained overnight. Wiring melted without clear cause. One technician reported hearing a voice through his headset while calibrating a sensor. He believed it was radio interference. The recording captured only low-frequency vibration. When enhanced years later, analysts noted that the waveform bore resemblance to human breathing. Access to Centralia was further restricted in the late 1980s after additional ground collapses. Yet the town never fully disappeared. Its roads cracked and buckled. Graffiti marked abandoned walls. The church roof partially collapsed in the early 1990s. Still, the foundation remained intact. In 1997, a group of clergy quietly visited the perimeter at the request of the diocese. Their purpose was unofficial. No public record of the visit exists beyond a brief entry in diocesan expense logs. One member of that group, speaking anonymously years later, stated that as they stood near the old pasture, the air grew unnaturally still. He described a sensation of pressure in his ears and chest. He also described hearing faint Latin phrases carried on the wind. The phrases were incomplete, fragmented, as if spoken from far below. According to him, one phrase was clear: non est finis. It is not the end. In 2003, thermal imaging again revealed expanding underground heat pockets directly beneath the church ruins. Engineers noted that the fire appeared to have shifted direction, spreading outward in a pattern unlike earlier projections.